My name is Lynn Poland. I am the co-founder of Kindred Beginnings along with Chrissy Beswick. Chrissy and I started Kindred Beginnings to help provide a safe space where people going through family building and their journeys could be supported, heard, and validated. So if you have any questions about our programs or how we can help support you, please reach out to one of us or visit our website. And information and links will be sent in the event chat. You know how to find us. So now I'd like to formally introduce our guest speaker, Miss Kelly Bryant. So Kelly is a Yoga Alliance experienced registered yoga teacher, registered prenatal yoga teacher, certified personal trainer, and a realist. She is passionate about helping women through every stage of life, from trying to conceive to postmenopausal. Prior to quitting her job to travel the world in 2016, and by the way, so jealous when I'm reading that, Kelly worked at a health and fitness startup, Noom. I'm sure you've heard of it. Here, she led content and community marketing efforts and soaked up everything she could learn about psychology and behavior change. So welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to do this. And thank you to those of you who are here live. Thank you for those of you who are taking the time to watch this recording after the fact. I also have a life, believe it or not. And so I would deeply appreciate that it is not easy to make the time to spend on yourself. And I did not, and this is unplanned, I did not intend to go this deep, but to be honest, I think the more women who are actually spending time on themselves, the better the entire universe becomes. We are all better served by women who are cared for, and that starts with caring for yourself. So
that sounds familiar, doesn't it, everybody? Love it.
Lynn read my bio, so I feel like you kind of have an idea of who I am. On the fun, personal side of things, I have a husband. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I live in South Florida. I started working with women's issues when I got pregnant myself. I was already a yoga teacher, a fitness instructor, and I just kind of wanted to Google and be like, what's safe to do while I'm pregnant? And y'all, that is a Google rabbit hole you do not want to go down. Such a pain. The information that's out there is either totally fear-mongering or old wives' tales, absolutely no evidence, just the most ridiculous stuff. And so I was like, there has to be something better. So I decided to build it. As Lynn said, I did work at Noom previously. That was sort of I guess that wasn't my introduction, but that was where I spent the most time kind of working in wellness content. I studied journalism, actually. So I created all of the content for their apps, all of the content about weight loss. And so I had to study and learn and read a lot of research about how to change people's behaviors. And the truth is, the way that we think it works, which is just hate yourself until you do better, that doesn't work. Which I'm sure is something that Lynn also has probably told you, is yeah, just be miserable and then you're totally going to live your dreams. That's not how it works. So that I'm all about that empowered life, really encouraging people to do not just what they think is good for you, but also what feels good and what you love to do. And I have taken what I kind of learned through my own pregnancy and postpartum and expanded that out to the trying to conceive period all the way through menopause. And because honestly, the same issues just kind of come up over and over and over again. What I'm hoping to cover tonight, and I want this to be guided by you guys as well. I'm very open to receiving questions. But what I wanted to cover is it safe to exercise while trying to conceive? How much? What kind of exercise? And why should you? If you're not currently, I want to sell you on starting to exercise. I want you to walk away feeling confident in your choices and empowered to do what feels good to you. So I am one voice. You also have a medical provider. You also have Lynn and Chrissy. You have lots of really amazing experts in your corner, and I'm offering another perspective. And most of all, I want you to feel confident in your own perspective and what feels right to you.
And Kelly, I love that you said that because, like, ladies, we always talk about being your own advocate. Kelly is just she's another expert that we are bringing in. So if something that she says resonates, you're curious about it and you question it. And if something she says is like, oh, that doesn't feel right for me, then you know it's not right for you. And that's what it always comes back to. And Kelly, like we've talked before, and I know you'll always say, it comes back to like what works for you, right? Like what is going to be the best for you. If you are a marathon runner and you want to run a marathon, you run the marathon. If it doesn't feel right, that's not what you do. It comes back to what feels good for you. So I love that you said that. So thank you for speaking to that.
Totally. So I want to first kind of start with this big lie that we're kind of told in the cultural narrative, which is that pregnant people, and I'm kind of extending pregnant people to like folks who are trying to conceive as well, but pregnant people are generally told that like either you're super fragile, you have to be really careful, everything is very dangerous, just take a load off and rest, honey. Stop trying to save the world, you're not a superhero. To the opposite end of it, which is like you can do whatever you were doing before. And unless you're Serena Williams and your livelihood actually depends on continuing to do whatever you were doing before, the answer is somewhere in the middle, as with most things, which is like not sexy, doesn't get 1,000 likes on Instagram, doesn't like get a lot of news coverage, but the answer is always in the middle, that no, you're not a porcelain doll. And also you can intelligently, thoughtfully alter what you've been doing to reflect this stage in your life. And one of the things that I'm constantly reminding people is not now doesn't mean not ever. In fact, at this stage, when you're trying to conceive through pregnancy and postpartum, often not now means you can do it again later. If you kind of blow off the fact that like this is a really exceptional life stage and you try to keep doing all the things you've always done, then you're kind of decreasing the chances that you're going to be able to do those things in the future, which I'm happy to talk about more if you want, but I don't want to get too far off track there. So all of that said, overwhelmingly, there is greater danger in exercising too little or not at all than there is in exercising too much, which almost always comes as a surprise to people because for whatever reason, the conventional thinking has been that people having fertility issues should be very, very gentle and do as little as possible. But the evidence doesn't support that. And I want to be clear, I'm making this assertion based on actual scientific evidence, which shows that across the entire population, exercise improves both fertility and prenatal and postpartum outcomes far more than it exacerbates infertility. So I'm going to say that again because there was double negatives. Exercise improves fertility much more than it exacerbates infertility. So all that said, your mileage may vary. All research ever tells us is what happens across the entire population, right? So I don't know how many math nerds there are here who learning about probability and things like that, but it's if you roll a dice, you have a 1 in 6 chance of getting the number 1, but you can roll it 6 times in a row and not get a 1. Or you can roll it 6 times in a row and get a 1 every single time. There's always going to be statistical outliers. So all I'm doing is taking this body of evidence and telling you that generally, broadly across the whole population, this is typically what we see. And that may or may not hold true, for you. And it doesn't mean you're broken, right? If you're rolling a die, you probably have to get to 20 or 30 times of not getting a 1 before you're all right, there's something wrong with this. You don't do it 6 times and go, this must be broken. The probability didn't work out for me. Right? And that's, I think, again, I'm in a mood because we're going real deep real quick. I didn't really plan to do this, but I think for people who are trying to conceive, the most important thing I want you to walk away with is feeling like you are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. not being pregnant at this exact moment is one normal variation of being human. Like, we study this in like human bodies, right? So like on average, people's hip moves this many degrees off of center. There's people who go 20 degrees further and 20 degrees less, and those are all normal variations. And like saying that, oh, you didn't get pregnant within a year, that means you're infertile, that is an arbitrary line that's been laid down for the intention of being able to like classify people. And like, boo, you are beyond classifying. So I wanted to say all of that. Getting to the gist. If I want to sell you on exercise, this is my favorite study. In a study of patients doing IVF and ICSI, starting an exercise program resulted in a 3.22 times higher rate of pregnancy. 3 times higher rate of pregnancy and 3.71 times higher rate of live birth. So almost 4 times higher rate of live birth. Your doctor might not tell you to exercise. Because, and there's really interesting studies that I didn't want to get into today, but like when doctors fill out these surveys, they will straight up say, I don't advise my prenatal or trying to conceive prenatal clients on exercise because I don't feel like I know enough about it, diet and exercise. Or they'll say, I don't advise my patients on diet and exercise because I'm concerned they might find it offensive, or I'm concerned that they're not going to listen to me anyway. So the fact that your doctor isn't saying anything doesn't mean they're a bad person, doesn't mean like they're stupid. It just means that, like many other doctors, they're not taught this. So the fact that your doctor isn't telling you to exercise doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't. If you're not sure, be the person who originates the question, right? So you can say, hey, should I exercise? And see what they have to say. And you can feel free to get a second opinion, right? So for what it's worth, I always suggest playing the dummy card of like, if you think your doctor is saying something that doesn't sound right to you, you don't have to be like, you're stupid and wrong. You can just say, I really don't understand, some chick who was teaching a webinar, she said that exercise results in a 3 times higher rate of successful IVF, whatever, getting pregnant when you're doing IVF. Is she like, can you explain it to me? Like, maybe she was wrong, but like, what? Really like just totally coming from a place of curiosity, but feel free to get a couple opinions if someone tells you not to exercise.
Kelly, I don't mean to interrupt you, but no. Diana.
So I'm a research nerd. So I have to ask you, was the population like general, or was this like PCOS patients? Was it across like a variety of diagnoses?
Good question.
Because
actually, dang it, I closed that tab. I pulled these notes out of my yet to be published. I wrote an entire book on prenatal exercise, and I then didn't edit it. So that's where we're at with the book. But I'm not in the document that actually has the citation.
Okay.
If Lynn wants to connect us, I'm happy to actually give you the link to the PubMed study.
Awesome,
I am going to give you,
go read it.
and Diana will. And hi, Leanne, nice to see you. I'm going to be sending out how you can reach Kelly directly. I'm going to give you her website, her Instagram, whatever. So you can just reach out. She will be in contact with you directly for sure.
You know what? Let me do this. For any of you who want to reach out to me, I'll just send you this chapter. And it has all the citations. Okay?
Neat.
And then,
Diana
maybe I'll publish the book. What?
Diana will be like, citation. What's the reference?
Exactly. No, it's all cited out. I'm like, I could tell you that answer, except that all I have is the number 10. So,
Fair.
Yeah, so if you guys want to like get essentially a text version of this talk and get all of the links, just hit me up and I'm happy to send it to you. And some of this, Diana, and some of the numbers I'm going to cite, I do know what the population is, if it's PCOS or whatever else.
I just think it's really interesting because you would have had to dig pretty deep to find these articles, because it's like, I mean, I've done my own research and a lot of it is around like medication protocols, blah, 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 blah. And so few studies actually focus on fitness or nutrition, and it's all the data is so mixed. And so I really,
we're going to talk about that.
I really like, well, I just like that you have references, which is great.
Yeah. So
what I found really interesting that what you said, Kelly, was doctors will not advise it because they just don't know. They're not informed. And so often, you know, I will say, and I will coach, you need to trust your doctor. So if your doctor doesn't know, and that's why he or she isn't saying that to you, there's a disconnect there, right? And so, and at the same time, there's always the permission of the and. We need to respect that and say, thank you for not telling me because you just don't know. And sometimes, you know, the doctors aren't the be all end all. If they don't know and they're just not telling you, and if he or she comes back and is like, you know what, I just don't know enough about it, there's something to be said for that too. So I love that you brought that up.
Absolutely. And that's actually something that I say all the time, specifically about like OBGYNs who are in the context of, you know, delivering baby. I'm like, I'm sorry, if I had to deliver a baby, the extent of my knowledge is like, touch as little as possible and don't pull the baby. That is what I know about delivering a baby. So like, I think it's pretty legit that they have a lot of knowledge about that part of things. And in the case of a fertility, like they have a lot of knowledge about that, and they don't have a lot of knowledge about nutrition and exercise because that's not what they're trained in. If don't come to me for fertility treatment, I cannot help you. Like, go to someone who knows what they're talking about when it comes to fertility treatment. What I can do is exercise and read studies like a nerd. But specifically on this topic of studies, this is like a really great segue into the next thing I wanted to tell you guys about, which is like a brief plug for your gut, your intuition, your nervous system, whatever you want to call it. How many of you guys have had well-meaning buttholes tell you that like if you just were less stressed, then you would just get pregnant? Anyone tell you that? Yeah. Super not helpful. Right? Did that make you less stressed? That said, we do know that like stress and the nervous system and being in a sympathetic or like a fight or flight response does not encourage conception. Like that is also true. There's two sides to that coin of like not helpful for someone to be like, just relax, you'll get pregnant. And also anything that you're doing that increases your stress, or if you have like clinical anxiety, anything that is going to increase those symptoms is not going to help fertility and is not going to increase chances of conception. So I can give you this entire document with all of the studies that say that this is safe and helpful and good for you. And if it doesn't feel that way, then it's not. And I always tell people, once you believe something, it is true to your body. And frankly, that's all that really matters in this context. So if you can take what I'm telling you and what these research studies show and like internalize it and like really believe it, then amazing. Go forward and do all of the exercise. But if you're like, if that cultural message of like, this is going to be bad, I'm going to shake the egg out, like if that is going to be in the back of your head and is going to make you anxious and is going to make you nervous and you're not going to be able to relax, then don't do it. Yeah? So we're going to take a brief interlude to talk about weight and BMI and infertility, because frustratingly, that is what all the research is on. So based on a survey that was looking at 25,000 women, their BMI, and how many got pregnant, about 12%, this is, I don't know how they did this math, 12% of female infertility in the US is probably due to being underweight, while 25% is caused by being overweight. we've covered 37% of the population. That means that there's 63%. It is after 8 p.m. and I just did that math. 63% that are neither over, like that being overweight or underweight is not impacting their infertility. Yeah. So my professional opinion is that BMI and weight as health indicators are not effective. Is everyone who has a high BMI fat? No. Among other things, body type and muscle mass influence BMI. Is everyone who is fat unhealthy? No. Compared to people at an average BMI, do more high BMI people have more health issues, including infertility? Yes. We don't know why. It could be that socioeconomic or behavioral factors associated with higher weight are also associated with reduced fertility. It could be that disorders that create reduced fertility also lead to weight gain, right? So we don't really know why there is a BMI and fertility connection, which is why it's so frustrating that so much of the research focuses on reducing BMI, right? Because there's a correlation between exercise and fertility and also exercise and weight loss. And we don't actually know if the two have anything to do with each other. Does that make sense? Cool. So a growing number of dietitians and nutritionists are suggesting that BMI is not actually the thing creating negative medical outcomes. That this is not my opinion. This is like there's a whole movement of people who say that BMI is a sexist, racist measurement, and weight may be just one result of socioeconomic and behavioral factors that are actually creating the negative outcomes that are associated with BMI. Look up healthy at every size if you're interested. All that said, study after study has shown that being overweight is correlated with a lower chance of getting pregnant. A 115-year large cohort study found that being overweight, according to BMI, increased your risk of infertility by 18%, while being obese increased your risk of infertility by 36% compared to being at a normal weight. Again, this is correlation. So we know that there are illnesses, I don't know if that's the right word, disorders that cause infertility that also cause weight gain, right? Because hormones. But we also know that weight isn't everything. One study found that each hour per week of vigorous exercise decreased chances of ovulatory infertility by 7%. So each hour of additional exercise reduces infertility by 7%. Even after adjusting for BMI changes, it's still 5% per hour. So whether you lose weight or not, increasing activity improves fertility.
And when you say exercise, Kelly, you just mean moving your body.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be like
this particular this particular study is referring to vigorous exercise, which is defined as like a certain heart rate range. I actually don't recommend vigorous exercise because one, it stresses out your nervous system. And this, of course, I'm saying I don't recommend it as like, oh, you are in fertility treatment, you've never exercised before in your life. I'm not going to be like, hey, like, let's start doing vigorous exercise. It's stressful to your nervous system. For a lot of people, it's not fun. And we don't do shit that's not fun around here. We only do things that feel good. No, that's not true. We do some things that don't feel good, but only because you're amazing and you can handle it. So a study of patients with PCOS found that exercise positively influenced this is a hard sentence to say, positively influenced insulin resistance regardless of weight loss. Another study showed that dietary management and exercise alone or in combination are equally effective in improving reproductive function in folks with PCOS. And while we're talking about PCOS, a review of studies on exercise as a therapy for PCOS found that the most consistent improvements included improved ovulation. So if you have PCOS, just start moving more. Any kind of movement, just start moving more. So to the issue with studies, a 2017 review of the current literature noted a complete absence of research on the effects of exercise for women at a quote unquote normal BMI. So while we can say that if you have a high BMI, exercising is definitely going to improve your fertility, or across the population is going to improve your fertility, whether you lose weight or not, we don't definitively know that the same would be true for women at a normal weight. Other reasons to exercise. Pain. Like anxiety and your emotions, pain has an influence on your nervous system, right? It like makes sense at a very basic level. If you're like, you know, wild cave Heather and you have a broken leg and you're like legit not going to be able to fend for your cave baby, your body does not want you to get pregnant, right? So if you are in pain, your body is not encouraged to become pregnant. And I see sorry, I heard a sound. Was there a question?
Sorry, that's me. I accidentally unmuted and I'm yelling at my dog. This is my life, everybody.
Here for it. So that's fine. I was in the middle of a client session earlier and I was like, I'm so sorry. My dog is peeing through the fence onto another dog's property. I need to just intervene here. I see so many people who are doing fertility treatment and also have chronic low back pain, pain with intercourse, just any kind of pelvic interstitial, another hard sentence to say, interstitial cystitis, recurrent UTIs, other things, all sciatic nerve pain, hip bursitis, like all of these things put your nervous system into a sympathetic response. When you're in a stressed out state for too long, your body does not function effectively. You do not go into rest and digest. And I like to call it rest and digest and get it on. It doesn't happen. Like that whole part of your human physiology doesn't function very well when you're in chronic pain. And I am not someone who's suffered much with chronic pain in my life. And I don't remember what the hell I did. I did something to hurt myself recently and I spent like 36 hours in chronic pain. And I was like, I am exhausted. I feel like crap. And there are people who feel this way all the time. And your set point has just like ramped up so much that you're like, I don't even notice that I'm in chronic pain all the time. Fibromyalgia is another one. So with all of these things, smart movement, safe movement helps with pain. Right? So I'm not saying like, oh, you have herniated discs in your low back, definitely go throw up some mad weights at CrossFit. I'm saying like, get cleared by a doctor for exercise, maybe do physical therapy, and then like try some yoga, try some Pilates, do some stretching. Like this is, by the way, this is like my jam. I love pain. I love working with people who are in chronic pain and like helping, especially I do like a lot of low back pain, a lot of pain with sex. So addressing those things through movement is awesome because you get the double benefit. You get to like not be in pain all the time. And also you get the benefits of exercise. So go ahead, Lynn.
No, and just to remind everybody, we always talk about how your body is going to respond before you realize what you're feeling. So when you're feeling this pain, and it can be in your neck, your shoulders, your back. I have chronic low back pain. And the more studies I did, like this is your sacral chakra. And so I'm into the whole chakra thing. And this is like where your confidence is and your power. And the more that I work on my core, the less pain that I feel. And I also notice when things start to spiral for me personally out of control and I feel like I don't know where I'm going, I get more back pain. So again, your body will most oftentimes speak to you before you realize what's going on. So when you're having this pain wherever, stop and take that mindful pause. Where is it? Here it is. It's right here. It's in my head. Okay. What is that telling me? Or it's in my jaw. All right, I'm stressed out. What's really going on? What's the deeper issue? And you address those feelings first. And then there's also the physical component. And Kelly, I had to laugh so hard when you were like, I love pain. And I know that's not, you meant like, you don't love pain, but you love it. You love, it was great the way you said it. But like, I love pain because like, there's a way to hit it from the physical aspect too. We talk so much about the mental, but it is both combined.
It is. And just as a random aside, for those who are into the woo, your sacral chakra, which is located at your SI joint, if you know where the like little dimples are above your butt cheeks, if you have pain around there, yoga teaches that that is also your fertility center. So if you're into the woo, I'm.
And the color is orange. Just telling you, the color's orange. It's not yellow, Heather. Sorry. I had to go off the yellow for a hot minute there. It's not yellow. It's the orange one.
So yeah, red, orange, yellow is your solar plexus, which is your power center. So exercise helps with pain as well, and pain is heavily associated with fertility issues. Is it possible to exercise too much? Yes. For women who are exercising at the highest intensity and frequency, research shows that physical activity can contribute to infertility. Again, the research is not great. Mostly because people who exercise just don't have infertility. No, that's not true. A study found that in women receiving IVF treatment, exercising vigorously for more than 4 hours per week for 1 to 9 years before treatment had decreased chances of getting pregnant. At no point in my life have I exercised vigorously for more than 4 hours a week for 9 years. No, you know what? My daughter for sure exercises vigorously for more than 4 hours per week. So maybe from when you are 1 to 9. But yeah, so it's like, again, if you're an elite athlete and you're competing really intensely, then that can contribute to infertility. And like, just go ahead and back it off now, because the way I'm reading this study is like, there's this tail of like, you may need to kind of have a while of not being at such a high intensity in order to like see fertility return. The American College of Sports Medicine acknowledges that overwhelmingly exercise has positive health effects, including improved fertility. What they say the real risk is the female athlete triad, which is irregular periods, osteoporosis, and disordered eating. So disordered eating, I'm not an expert in this topic, but like, if you do have a disordered relationship with food, that is worth getting support. I mean, if you have a disordered relationship with anything, before you get pregnant and like fully lose your mind, do like get all like, because your hormones are going to go wild. And so you really want to have the support structures in place that, you know, if you need to see a therapist, if you need a coach, if you need like to see a nutritionist who specializes in disordered eating to like make sure that you're getting enough food, all that shit goes off the rails when your hormones go crazy. So address those. And PS, also your relationship, address that too. Just a plug for holistic well-being.
No, that's so great, because when we go through our fertility and our family building journey, you go through that journey the way that you're going to parent. So if you're going through it, when you say relationship, if you're going through it and you and your partner are at odds, when you go to parent, you're going to be at odds. Mm-hmm. So the way that you attack this journey and you go through it is the way that it will continue. They're not separate entities.
Right.
They come together, which is
Which
to your
is
point.
which is true in all of the facets, right? So I also want to emphasize that like this is also true in the way we relate to food and movement. I am never going to say that someone who is trying to conceive should be on like a highly regimented diet or exercise protocol, because regiment does not work when you are pregnant, parenting. Like that is not sustainable. And so I always look at things, whether I'm working anywhere in the spectrum of, you know, trying to conceive to menopause, I ask people, what do you want to be doing in a year? Let's do that. Right? So it's like, if I give you a workout program and I'm like, great, you have to exercise this much for the next year, every week for the next year. And you're like, we're not going to do that. Like, we want to do something that's actually going to be sustainable, that you're like, you have this kid and you're like, oh my God, I really love that. And I want to get back to doing it. Right. Because it doesn't, you know, you can't get through it with like what I call white knuckle death grip. Like you cannot force your way through this whole process. You have to enjoy the process, because whether you're in fertility treatment or not, this is still your life. Right? So this is not about like, how miserable can I make myself for a year or 3 years or 7 years so that when I get pregnant and have a baby, then I'll be happy. I promise you will not be if you don't do the work of being happy and present in your life now, which nobody wants to hear.
Say that again, because I preach it, but it means something from somebody else. Please say
It's
that
true.
again.
So if you are not able to be present and happy with where you are now, right? We say this about money all the time, right? Money's not going to make you happy. The next job promotion is not going to make you happy. Getting pregnant is not going to make you happy. Finding the man of your dreams is not going to make you happy. None of that shit counts if you can't be happy along the way. And happy is not a constant state. Happy is disappointed and okay. And disappointed and okay. But it's not like push, because eventually I get the reward of being happy. I like to liken this to exercise, right? You can't just like walk into the gym and be like, yeah, I'm gonna do a quick clean and press. Like you have to actually practice that movement. And happiness is the same thing. You don't just like walk into parenting and go like, no, I'm happy. It's like you have to actually practice happiness, because you're going to be terrible at it at first, because your brain is running an operating system called something is wrong. You're constantly looking for something to be wrong. And if that's all you've practiced for your entire fertility journey, you're going to be fantastic at running something is wrong when you're pregnant, and running something is wrong once you've had a kid. And we all know these people, right? Maybe you had a mom who was one of these people that like, you're like, I am an adult. I have a job. I have a partner. Like, I'm fine. And they're like, you're going to die. Like, you can't constantly be in that state of like looking for the next shoe to drop. So that's my soapbox on that. I want to quickly touch on, I'm looking at the time. I want to leave time for you guys to ask questions. I just want to quickly touch on exercise during fertility treatment. The truth is, we don't know what's safe, because nobody is like shelling out the money and the like time and the pain and the drama and the emotional, like no one is like finally doing, you know, an IVF cycle or something, and then is like, sure, I'll do the study where we see if things can screw it up. Nobody signs up for that study. Nobody wants to be a guinea pig in that program. And this is also true. This is why we don't like actually legit know if it's safe to drink alcohol when you're pregnant, because all of the research is, oh my God, I'm forgetting the word and Diana's going to know it. It's the thing where they ask people after the fact, right? So it's like, oh, you got pregnant. What did you do? So we don't know, like in a true A/B study, did exercise during fertility treatment like cause, you know, did it help or did it hurt? We don't actually know. Either way, it's possible that exercise during fertility treatment helps. We're departing for whatever reason. The medical establishment departs from the assumption that it hurts. That may not be true, but the inverse also could be true, that maybe it actually helps the performance of fertility treatment, right? I've read some stuff that like I cannot find any evidence. Like I've read people say like, if you do ab exercises, you're going to draw blood away from the uterus. I've seen no evidence for that, like actual scientific evidence. Basically, if you hear something and it sounds like it could be an old wives' tale, it probably is. Because for the most part, sorry, it's really warm in here and I'm like starting to schwitz. So, if it sounds like it could be an old wives' tale, it probably is. And we know that because for the most part, research has not been done on actually what will happen during IVF if you do X or Y or Z. Factors that I would consider when deciding whether or not to continue exercise during fertility treatment. I want to acknowledge there's like a lot of types of treatment. And so this is going to be different based on what you're doing. Your mood and energy levels. So personally, I wouldn't sacrifice the mood boosting effect of exercise during treatment. I think then more than ever, you need to be like boosting your serotonin as much as possible. If you manage your mood in other ways, amazing. Do that first, right? So like if you want to go get a massage or you want to go like make out, like whatever it is that like gives you a serotonin boost, you can do other things first, but exercise is one tool that people use for mood and energy management. How many cycles you've done or intend to do, right? So if you're like, I'm doing this one time, if it doesn't work, I'm adopting, or I'm doing this one time, and if it doesn't work, I'm not going to have kids, then like, it's reasonable to say, yeah, I'm going to not exercise for 3 weeks or 9 weeks or whatever. If you're like, I'm going to do cycle after cycle after cycle after cycle until it works, then you can't go a year without exercising. I mean, you can, but like you're going to choose differently if you're looking at potentially years of not consistently exercising, right? Because you're constantly going on the, and now I'm starting again, and now I'm coming off again, and now I'm starting again, and now I'm coming off again. So over the span of, for example, a year, you might not be able to make the overall fitness improvements necessary to see improvements in fertility if you're doing multiple cycles. Does that make sense? What types of exercise do you want to do? Light to moderate intensity exercise like walking, stretching, unheated yoga classes are pretty unlikely to cause issues. So you can just use the litmus test of like, does this increase the level of stress in my body, right? So like, and by level of stress, I don't mean like your feeling of stress where you're like, I'm so worried about work. I mean like literally, does your system feel hot, like mine is right now, like hot, elevated heart rate? You know what stress hormones feel like in your body. It's not always a bad feeling, right? It's not always like, oh, my boss is being such a jerk. Like it can just, when you go for a run, you're ramping up your stress hormone in order to drop it. So if you're doing things that increase the cortisol levels in your body, that I would be questionable about that. And the last question is, how good are you at listening to your body? So if you listen, your body and intuition are pretty good at giving you clear signals about what is and isn't a good idea. So if you know that you're like, you have a very competitive personality and you're going to push yourself to an 11, skip it. If you're like, I have always been the person who's like, I'm gonna be in the back row doing jack. Like I will take every child's pose that you offer. Like I feel zero pressure to do anything in a workout class. And so I would be totally good with it, but like you have to know yourself. And I know lots of people who like, I have a client who like is her work is taking a day off. Like, so that, everyone is different. I know I just saw Heather's face go like, I don't think I'd be friends with her. Exercise at each stage of fertility treatment. Regardless of where you are, listen to your body. That does not mean that if your body asks for Doritos, like, go get the keys. It's like, actually hear the sensations in your body and notice acute pain. Obviously, don't exercise if you have acute pain. If you're feeling like exhausted, drained, or like uncomfortable, right? Uncomfortable versus in pain is like a really interesting one to practice learning, right? There's a lot of people who say childbirth is not painful. It's just a lot of sensation. I am not one of those people, but that's like you can figure out for yourself, like, is this pain or is this just like uncomfortable? And can I tell the difference between uncomfortable, not going to cause me actual problems, versus painful, really is going to cause me problems? So if you're feeling like kind of tired, kind of uncomfortable, maybe you just walk or you swim or you stretch. I wish I had the citation for this and I don't. I found one fertility clinic that like actually made recommendations about what you could do at different stages. During ovarian stimulation, yoga, walking, light strength training. I call like light strength training, I would say like bar is like a great example of light strength training. Immediately after egg retrieval, you may be in pain and you may want to take it easy a couple days. After an intrauterine insemination or embryo transfer, you can basically think of yourself as pregnant. So once your body is no longer in any discomfort, you basically do like prenatal exercise as if you are pregnant. So there's like this thing I think that happens particularly when you are trying to conceive, when you're like maybe I'm like 30% pregnant. Like maybe I'm now like 60% like you're pregnant or you're not. Right? So like you don't want to do like if it's physically painful because of the particular procedures that you've had, just don't do that. But once you've done the procedure, you're not in pain, just do prenatal exercise. And that's a whole separate talk.
And if you are doing stims before IVF, no twisting, no turning, because you can actually flip your ovaries. So that is something else you can, because they're swollen because you're stimulating them. And so be really mindful of twists and turns. And when you do get into those prenatal exercises, any, great prenatal, and, pregnancy, instructor will tell you will modify and say, okay, you don't need to turn your body. You won't go into those deep twists and turns. So just be mindful of that, especially if you're in a stim stage.
Yes, that's a great point, because I work for like most of my clients who I work with who are trying to conceive choose to take time off when they are doing, like I have this weird, I don't like, sometimes I just go 3 weeks where I don't have an 8 a.m. appointment. I'm like, what am I going to do with all this time? So like most of my clients just choose to do nothing. If they're like, for example, I have someone who's doing IVF who's like, we waited until like the last day of like, when is my cycle going to start? And then like, okay, I'm going to take 3 weeks off. But 3 weeks, like not, I'm going to take off, I forget when you go back in to like check, not like 6 weeks or 9 weeks, like, because either you get to the end of that 3 weeks, either you're pregnant or you're not. Like, you can just proceed as if you're pregnant. And I also want to note here, like, personally, I probably wouldn't choose to like walk into a public prenatal yoga class, because that might be like very emotionally triggering if you actually don't know yet. Right? Like that, and that's personal preference. It's just something I want to note, that like when I teach prenatal, it's very much like a community activity where everyone's going to be like, well, I'm 12 weeks and I'm da 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 da. And you might not feel comfortable being in that situation around a bunch of pregnant people and being like, well, I just did this, like, I don't actually know yet. And like, so you might want, like, when I say you can proceed with prenatal exercise, I mean, I have guides on my website, like, I have prenatal classes that are digital that you don't have to be in like a place where people are looking at you and asking you how far along you are. Like, that's not a situation I would want to be in. So that's what I mean by proceed with prenatal exercise. I just want, if you've never been to a prenatal class, something to consider. That's what I've got. I'm happy to answer questions more about like, what do I mean by safe prenatal exercises, but I don't want to spend I didn't want to spend so much time on that today.
Ladies, I know you have questions. You're never this quiet.
I answered every question that there is.
No, you didn't. No, here comes Leanne.
Hi. I put my video back on so you could actually see me.
Hi, Leanne.
Hi, how are you? I just wanted to say thank you because a lot of this confirms what I have found on my own. Like, I didn't realize that there was studies about exercise and stuff, but I am a firm believer in some amount of exercise and nutrition. I think that helped me. I didn't have fertility issues. I have a daughter. I didn't have any issues with her, but I've tried to do it again. And I've kind of done every aspect of this over the last 4 years. I've white knuckled through it. Yes, I will confirm that that is not sustainable or ideal, although I was so convinced that I would be the one person that would work for. I followed every diet, every recommendation until I realized that you could be a ping pong ball because one person tells you to, run like hell to get your system going. The next person will tell you to, sleep all day, or, you just can't do that. So you just, I like hearing what you have to say because it resonates for me to like do what works for you. And I'm trying that now. And Lynn has been my master guide through a lot of this, but so it's really great to hear that there are people actually studying this and it does work. It's not a silver bullet, but just do what works for you and take care of your body and be healthy and always.
Yeah, and I appreciate you reflecting that because that's actually one thing that I want to mention that I don't know if I said explicitly, which is like, I have a podcast. My podcast is called the Not Your Mama podcast, and the whole point of my podcast is that like, you are a person who also happens to have a womb, but you're mostly a person. Like you, while you're in fertility treatment, while you're like, you still have a life and you can't live your whole life to get pregnant. Right? Then you become like that mom. Don't be that mom.
And we've talked about that. You have always been, you were a person before you set out on this journey. She is there. She is not the same. She will never be the same. But she is there. But somewhere along the way, we lose her because we become obsessed with getting pregnant. And sometimes getting pregnant again. And then if you are trying to get pregnant again, there's all those other feelings of like guilt, but I already have one. I should feel appreciative and all those big feelings. And those are valid and they are big feelings. But you were a person before this. And we can't lose sight of that.
But then it's not just, like the facts are the facts, but like how being yourself manifests in your body is like, I am content. I am happy. The lion is not chasing me. I don't need to be heightened. I don't need to be, it's like your body knows that you are just living your best life as you. And like you said, like the body will tell you before you realize it. Like,
it will. And Leanne, your family building journey is the lion. So let's not negate that. We need to validate that too, because there is a lion chasing you.
Yeah, but you have to manage that.
That's why your family building is a constant state of trauma. You're constantly in that fight or flight. And when you are in that zone and your cortisol levels are elevated, your amygdala is going off, your reptile brain all the time, your body can't handle that. Your body is meant to handle stressors in chunks, not chronic all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When you are chronically all the time in that fight or flight state, your body starts to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we need to do things to manage that, which goes along with the exercise is one way to manage it. And we know other ways. You've been coached in other ways. Other ways, like meditation, mindful moments, yoga, self-care. These things. Exercise is another way. For me, I have a very strong morning routine. I walk every morning. Heather, I almost took a picture for you this morning. Well, I walked twice today. I walked for about 30 minutes this morning, and then I walked again for about 50 minutes, and I didn't know that snow squalls were coming. And I was out in the middle, and I was like, what is happening? And I didn't have a hat on because it was sunny when I left the house, and I was like, what is happening? I pulled my hood up. I looked ridiculous. All you could see were my eyes, and I was like, and I was in my Uggs, and I was like, my Uggs are going to get ruined because now it's like snowing. And I was like, I'm not giving up my walk. I was like, I was like, just be mindful. How often are you actually walking in the snow? I never intentionally walk in the snow like that. Like that was not I'll walk after the fact, but not as it's squalling around me. But these are the things that we need to get back to. You need to get back to being in the present. You need to get back into moving your body, and it doesn't need to be so vigorous. Like Kelly said, the vigorous exercise is not what it's about. It's just about moving your body in a way that feels good for you. What does that mean for you? And depending on where you are in your cycle. So at some parts of your cycle, it's going to be a little bit more self-care, or it could be, I grant myself permission to give myself a break because I'm in the middle of a stim and I'm not doing it right now. Right? Because stretching and walking just doesn't feel good for me. Or it could be, hey, I'm a couple of days after transfer. I want to get the blood flowing. What's going to feel good for me and moving my body is a short walk around the block.
Yeah.
That intuition, and Kelly spoke to that tonight. It's all about that intuition, what feels right for me, for my body at this time in my cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come back to that always.
And one thing that I want to reiterate here is that idea of once you believe it, it's true. So if anyone tells you that you're wrong, you can tell them, once I believe it, it's true. So I have a client who, I love this. She's straight up I don't ever want to be sore. I'll lift weights. I'll get strong. I never want to be sore the next day. And I'm like, okay, that's a fun challenge. Because if I try to tell her, no, the only way to get sore, or the only way to get stronger is to be sore. The only way to get out of your chronic low back pain is to be sore. Her system is peace out. I don't want any part of that. Right? So if she doesn't want to be sore, this none of this is going to work. In order to actually get stronger, your body has to repair itself. So if you're working out a bunch and you're not sleeping and you're not calming down your system, then it doesn't repair and you don't develop muscle and you don't get the intended benefit. And that's part of why I say no white knuckle death grip. Yes, it's because this is your life and it should be enjoyable and you should do things that you like, but also because you don't even get the benefit. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You just brought up a really great point about sleep too. Sleep is so essential. It does need to be a balance. Sleep
yes, you don't miss sleep to work out. That is a law. It's in the Constitution. Check me. You don't lose sleep to work out. That said, if you're getting 8 hours of sleep, you don't stay in bed to miss a workout. It's both and, but especially when I have postpartum people, but in general, if you have a very demanding day job, I don't like to do, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. workouts. Because you need to use your energy for the thing that sustains your livelihood or keeps another human being alive or whatever. And we do a lunch hour workout or we do a, after work workout, and we tailor it to what is actually available after you've done all the stuff you have to do. Right. Because I don't want you to get to the end of your workday and be like, or get to the end of like parenting your toddler, those of you who already have one, like, and be like, oh my God, I can't lift my kid because my arms are going to fall off. Like, that's not useful for your life. Like, so you don't miss sleep to get a workout. You also don't use all your reserves on your workout before you can like figure out what you need for the rest of your life. And that also goes to like managing things based on where you are in your cycle.
And what worked for you always. Again, and at the top of this talk, we said you're going to take some things that are going to resonate with you. You pull for that, and some things are not. And you're going to say, I'm going to leave that behind. That's okay. You have to pick out what's going to work for you. What are the questions you have for Kelly? She's here. Ask her.
Well, I don't have a question, Lynn, so just pipe it down over there. But I do want to say that I appreciate you, Kelly. I appreciate you, what you had to say in regards to, first off, the BMI thing, because I have secondary unexplained. I had no problems with my daughter. I was a little bit lighter then, not drastic, but I didn't weigh as much. So of course I always think like maybe that's it. And needless to say, because the doctors haven't found a reason where I can't get pregnant, that's always like, well, you should lose weight. Like they always throw that in. And like, I already feel shitty enough that I can't get pregnant. Like February will be 4 years that we've been trying for a second baby. I already feel like an ass. Like I don't need you to tell me like, well, maybe if you weren't fat, you could get pregnant. Like I don't think goodbye. So like, I understand like there is correlation, but that doesn't mean causation. So just because I'm heavier, that doesn't mean that's the reason I can't get pregnant. So I don't know, it just made me like, kind of like take like a sigh of relief that you said that, because maybe it is because I'm heavier, but maybe it's not. Like, I don't know. So it's just kind of, I appreciated you saying that.
And I mean, so like, if you had a magic wand to just weigh less, then you could use that magic wand. But given that it doesn't exist, or else that person would have a lot of money, that's not a helpful thought, right? Like, and this is, I am straight up, like, I have had thin privilege my whole life. If I walked into a doctor and said I'm having X, Y, and Z issue, my weight would never come up.
Right.
And you can just choose, like, unfortunately, you can't necessarily get all your providers on board, although you can look for others. Like, you can just choose to proceed as if your weight is irrelevant, because the evidence shows that things like exercise work regardless of weight change.
Right.
So what, like, this is, you know, I'm not necessarily speaking to fertility, but in general, for people who are at a heavier weight, if you walk into the doctor and they say you need to lose weight, you can just like say like, okay, after I lose weight, then what would we do? So like, let me just save a trip here. Let's say I lose 20 pounds. On my next visit, what are you going to tell me to do? And just like skip the weight loss part, because maybe they're going to tell you other things that also influence weight, like diet and exercise, but not for the point of weight loss. And maybe they're going to tell you other things that are more useful, right? That well, there's no magic wands, or else there'd be a lot more pregnant people. But, you know, the next, whether it's treatment or medication or like whatever the next thing is. And I wish that they were all prescribing mindfulness and meditation and deep breathing and pain. Like, by the way, do you have any chronic pain?
I do, which I wanted to talk to you about on the side. I don't want to consume the entire thing.
Yeah. Shoot me a message and yeah, we can connect about that. Is the chronic pain since your first?
Yeah. I could talk to you on the side, because it's like, it goes
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just, I appreciate you saying that. I also appreciate you saying like, you can't white knuckle it, because I'm also that person like Leanne. Like, I'm thinking like, I'll be the one that it works for. Let me tell you, it wasn't. So needless to say, like I'm working a lot with Lynn on doing like
Mhm.
working up here to help everything else,
Mhm.
the trickle down effect. So I don't know, it's just
Yeah.
it's helping,
Right.
that's what you're saying. So I just want to thank you for that.
Good. I'm glad that that's helpful. And, just to touch on that a little bit, one thing you said there, whenever we have a goal, I do this with all of my clients with all goal setting. Ask yourself, what do you think you're going to feel when you get that? Right? So for you guys, it's, trying to get pregnant. What do you think you're going to feel when you get pregnant? Joy, excitement, validation, like worth. What if you don't get those things from being pregnant? What if you get those things from your brain? Because that's true. And what would you choose to think? And so this is where it ties into exercise. People think like, oh, I just want to get fit because if I was fit, then I would feel blah, 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 blah. The only reason anyone ever does anything is for a feeling, so that you can feel better. Our brain is designed to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So you want to feel less shitty stuff and more awesome stuff. That's the only reason you do anything. And you think that getting pregnant is going to make you happy. You think that you're going to feel joyful. You think you have to feel those things now. You have to find ways to feel that on the way there, or else getting pregnant isn't going to make you happy. Right? If you've built up the muscle of just being like, Heather's one hot ass bitch. Like if you just practice that muscle the whole time, then like maybe yes, you do lose 20 pounds and you're like, hey girl. But if you lose 20 pounds and you haven't practiced that thought, then you look at yourself and you go, I still suck.
Yeah.
So that's like, I'm all about the fake it till you make it. Like just decide that you weigh whatever less you want to weigh and start feeling that now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like our event last week, doesn't it? Ladies that are on. You have to visualize it. You have to really feel it, not just be like, oh, I'm just saying it to say it. You have to, there's the feeling behind it, and then there's the action behind it that will come. Diana, you're still muted, but I know you have a lot to say. I can tell by your face.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry I had to step away for like the last 20 minutes because I was doing my shots, but
You missed
all the good stuff,
secret.
everything.
The secret was in that 20 minutes, Diana.
It's being recorded. You can watch that 20 minutes.
Yes, I will go back. But Kelly, I so enjoy you talking about this because you're like no nonsense, down to earth. I listened to your interview with on the Beat Infertility podcast, and I was so excited that you're gonna talk tonight. And I told Lynn this. I am still so what is vigorous exercise? Because like what is that in terms of like heart rate? Because I confess I loved running. I wasn't like a crazy runner, but I definitely ran, 20-ish miles an hour. Sorry, not an hour, a week, for years.
You were fast.
Which is not like, it wasn't like, that's not like a crazy amount in terms of just like a recreational runner. I didn't think so at the time. So it'd be maybe like anywhere between 3 and 5 miles a few times a week or more, or like plus like a warm up, like a mile warm up, whatever I ran. So I'm kind of used to like cardio. I'm used to like, I like my type of, the exercise that I like is, I really like functional fitness. So like the idea of staying strong and lifting weights is something that I've done for a long time, like close to 20 years. Like, I've like always been interested in fitness, and what does vigorous exercise mean? Because it's very squishy to me. And it's like, I wear a Fitbit. I know my heart rate kind of goes between like in the cardio range when I'm doing my, when I am lifting, but it's not like peak, it's not sustained. It's kind of, you know, in a circuit style where it kind of goes up and then goes down. I don't, it is my serotonin boost. It's how I feel
Right.
normal. It's how I feel like I can do things in life, you know, so it gives me a lot.
All right. So
But
I'll give you the official measures. Obnoxiously, vigorous exercise doesn't have like a uniform like when a study says vigorous exercise, I'm sure if you read the full text of the study, they do define it, right? Because they're taking that measure from somewhere, so they have to be giving the participants like a definition. That said, there's a few that generally people use to describe vigorous or high intensity exercise. I will read them to you. The talk test. So if you're doing moderate intensity exercise, you can talk but not sing. During high intensity exercise, you won't be able to say more than a few words.
yeah, so I do like moderate. It's not.
So there's also rate of perceived exertion, which
Right.
is the most ridiculous scale, but it runs from 6 or no effort at all to 20 or max effort. Why the hell is it 6 to 20 instead of 1 to 14? I don't know. But 12 to 14 is moderate. 15 and up gets into high intensity. That said, exercise intensity is affected by your fitness level.
Right.
Also, like, obviously, if you are in, like, actually in treatment, like, how you're feeling is also going to, like, I have days that, like, I can barely say more than a few words just out of bed. Like, not doing any exercise. I'm just like, please don't speak to me. So that, like, measurement, they're all subjective and they vary based on kind of like your baseline. That, like, a group spin class could be high intensity for everyone else in the room, but if you're at a higher fitness level, then your heart rate is not going to be affected in the same way. Yeah. So it's really not, and this is where it's interesting if we are concerned about being on the too much end of the spectrum. This is where you almost can be your own worst enemy for being fit, because it's going to naturally move your heart rate down. Right? Does that make sense? So it's like, if you're not super fit, then the same exercise, like the same objective exercise with someone else looking at it, is not going to feel as hard to you. Your heart rate's not going to be as affected, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, of course, where I would go back to that. They call it like the female athlete triad of like amenorrhea, missed periods, osteoporosis, disordered eating. Obviously, those are like big red flags for fertility. Weight loss in general. But like, again, this is very personal. This is a conversation that you and Lynn probably could really benefit from, of like how would you feel about doing an experiment of like fluffing up for a bit? Like, you know, like yeah, how would you feel about saying, I'm not going to run for 3 months as an experiment? Yeah. Because I think it'll benefit my mental, like, I have to tell you a secret. You can't run postpartum for a while.
So I've cut out tons of exercise. Yeah. I barely run. I don't spin. Like, it's been going on, you know, 2 years of not doing this stuff, basically. So it's not like I'm doing it now. Yeah.
And that hasn't worked.
And it hasn't worked. So it's not.
In this study, with an N of 1, that doesn't work. So then do the other thing. Like, so clearly it's like, and then of course it comes down to like, what do you actually believe, right? So if you like feel like you've objectively studied this and you've, you know, done an A/B test of like, I took away those forms of exercise, that was the only thing I changed, it didn't affect anything, then you add it back in. If you're going to add it back in and constantly question if that was a mistake, then don't.
Right.
And that's, that's again where it comes down to like cultural messaging is powerful. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter if that's correct, that, maybe it is perfectly fine for you to do. And what they say is like, what, each additional hour of high intensity exercise improves fertility by 5% or something like that. That was for overweight patients. But regardless of weight or of weight change for overweight patients, that's what they found. But we don't know. We don't know in the study of Diana if that's true. And we'll never know, right?
Right.
Because you could get pregnant tomorrow having not done spin or run for 2 years, and you wouldn't know if that's what changed it. You wouldn't know if you also could have gotten pregnant doing spin, like running and spinning all the time. Again, the one study that shows that I find compelling as far as evidence for over exercise causing infertility, they say 4 hours of vigorous exercise for years. So, but I want to just real quickly, for you and for anyone else who's in this camp, because you did say like, I manage my mood with running.
Exercise
Like in
movement.
general. Yeah.
Movement. Yeah.
That, as much as I'm like, it can be really problematic, because what are you going to do if you get hit by a bus? Right? Like, what are you going to do if you're laid up in bed in a full body cast? What are you going to do if you're put on full pelvic rest? What are you going to do if you have a C-section and you can't move for you can't exercise for 6 weeks? Like, these are very real possibilities that, like, I'm not saying you can't use exercise for mood enhancement, but it really shouldn't be your only coping tool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Diana, that's huge for you. Take a breath, get that, soak that in. Diana has made strides in that field, though.
Good.
Well, the problem with going through infertility is that it feels like everything is taken away. You're not supposed to eat this. You're not supposed to do that. You can't wear perfume. You can't touch receipts. Like, it's so ridiculous.
CVS receipts, especially.
It feels like nuts.
Right. And so that's exactly where it comes back to, like, also, you get to have a life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, first of all, I am not a big believer in like juju and curses and stuff, because if that were true, then like everyone would be pregnant and everyone would have amazing births, because we all go around being like, oh, don't talk about this, that'll make it happen. Like, we don't say what's the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. And while I don't think we should linger there, I think it's really worth asking yourself the question, like, what if I never get pregnant? Am I okay with living my life this way if I'm not going to get the payoff? And maybe the answer is yes. Maybe you're like, yeah, ultimately, like, this is all just like a big trip to Vegas and you're just making gambles. Like, yeah, ultimately, I'm willing to put, sushi and running on the table and play my hand no matter the outcome. But if you're making sacrifices that you're like, if this doesn't work, then this isn't worth it. Then it's not worth this gamble. Don't put yourself in that position, because then every cycle, everything you try gets you closer and closer and closer to desperation. Mm-hmm. And desperation does not get you pregnant. Right? Which, again, we're like treading on that really unhelpful line of like, just calm down. But it, like, if you are living your life in a way that is miserable unless you're pregnant, then every time that you are not pregnant is a catastrophe and your life is meaningless. I don't want to fucking live like that. Right? So you have to be comfortable with the trade-offs.
Honestly, I think the way that I'm not like a mess on a you know, monthly on a monthly cycle is that I've tried more or less to like carry on with life as the person I know I am and want to be. But then there's like you had alluded to, there's lots of wives' tales about what you should or shouldn't do, and it just
Mhm.
it gets to of like, well, if I can pin down what that actually is, and the frustrating thing about fertility is that like everybody's different, everybody's
Right.
a snowflake,
Right.
the advice conflicts, and I think I just go back to like what you said, I think at the beginning, which is if it feels right for you, if it feels good for you, um, then it probably is like
Yeah.
within reason and
Yeah.
logic and all that stuff, and to
What
trust yourself.
your
Yeah.
system believes on a physiological level, and I think Lynn said it well, of like, you feel things in your body before you recognize them emotionally.
Mhm.
And so if it feels true in your body, then your body is already functioning from the place of like, this is how the world is, whether or not you cognitively realize that you have that belief or not. And for what it's worth, like, you guys have an amazing resource here in Lynn and Chrissy, and sometimes it is beneficial to like pull back the number of influences you're getting, right? So like if you have a coach, have a coach. Because, and you know, I appreciate Lynn saying like, you get to take from me coming here and talking at you whatever you want. And like, I think that your fertility tent should be like a very private affair. And like, I feel very honored to be invited into the tent, and like maybe a couple fewer podcasts, maybe a couple fewer Facebook pages, maybe a couple fewer Instagram pages, maybe a couple fewer like doom scrolls on your like. Everyone does not have helpful advice for you simply because all of our advice is not going to agree, and it's going to just create doubt.
And you will always find what it is that you're searching for.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Our number one rule is what, ladies?
Don't Google.
I was going to say, is it don't Google?
Because it sends you down a rabbit hole. And our second rule is you have to trust your doctor. And if your doctor is the medical professional. And I always say, like, I will be here and I will guide you, but I am not a medical professional. You have to trust your doctor. That's where the medical advice comes in. But we always take what resonates and what's going to sit with you, and just some things are not. And that comes from your medical doctor, that comes from me, that comes from Kelly, that comes from whatever podcasts. And I know none of you are Googling, so I know it's not coming from there. But yeah, that's an excellent point, Kelly. I love the metaphor of the tent. Like,
yeah,
that was great. I love that. I'm gonna take that. That was great.
If you don't want these people sitting at your dining room table at Thanksgiving, don't listen to their advice.
I'm gonna take that too.
Also, if you have people sitting at your dining room table at Thanksgiving whose advice you don't want,
Kick them
maybe
out.
don't have them at your table anymore. Like, literally.
It's so true. I mean, Kelly, you spoke to so many wonderful things tonight. I mean, some big takeaways for me are like, not now doesn't mean not ever. That was something that I wrote down. I thought that was a really powerful quote that you said. And again, just going back to listening to your body and your intuition, I would just say, just move your body more, but in a way that feels good and that resonates with you. And check with your doctor. And I've also heard these ladies say, hey, I like want to talk to you kind of off the side, and I'm going to definitely share your information with them with your approval, of course, and so that way that they can contact you directly.
Yeah, please. I'm happy to send you guys the fertility chapter of my unpublished prenatal exercise book. I do one-on-one personal training. Right now, I don't have any trying to conceive specific groups running. So all of my like TTC programming is one-on-one because it's highly individualized anyway. Like, you all have different preferences and different needs. My Instagram is a really good place to just laugh at me doing ridiculous shit on TikTok. I embarrass myself routinely there. Facebook, I'm there as well. But again, don't follow all the things. Just follow the things that bring you joy.
So Kelly, share, I'm going to put it out in the email, the follow-up email, but share how people can reach out to you to learn more about you.
Yeah. So my email is just kelly@kellybryantwellness.com. I'm at Kelly Bryant Wellness all of the places. So you can email me, kelly@kellybryantwellness.com. I'm Instagram at kellybryantwellness.com. I'm Facebook at facebook.com/kellybryantwellness. I'm TikTok at, you don't have a URL for TikTok. I'm at Kelly Bryant Wellness at TikTok. My podcast is the Not Your Mama podcast. I talk to parents, I talk to experts, and I share my own advice recommendations. I talk about all things being a person with a womb. So productivity and habits and goals and all the things. I just did like a really, really good episode with one of my clients who talked about HELP syndrome and miscarriage. And that, like, so if you like want to have a good cry, the parent episodes of my podcast are awesome. If you want to just like get a kick in the ass, then the solo episodes of my podcast. I think that's it. I think I said all the things. My email list, you can get on my email list at my website.
Yeah, and I'm going to share out her information. And Kelly, send me whatever you'd like me to send
Yeah,
out,
sure.
and I will forward that to everybody, and I'll put it
Yep.
on the membership page too. A recording of tonight's event will be on the membership page. Just give, I don't do that. That's Chrissy. Chrissy will just give her a couple days to do it. I don't know how to do that. Chrissy will put that up within the week for sure. And Kelly, I want to thank you so much for your time. Kelly volunteered to be here tonight, so we planned this back in October, and I just appreciate her putting this on the calendar. And her email back to me was like, "Wow, I'm really impressed. You're like thinking about January." So, and now January is here, right? So, just thank you, Kelly, so much for being here, for all of the wonderful information. And I'm gonna keep sharing your name. I hope to have you back. And ladies, I'm going to be sending you out a survey on the event tonight. If you could please take it, it really just helps us out with our data collection and on what we are doing well and what you would like to see. Kelly, I want to let you know, Leanne texted me. She's actually, her father-in-law just passed away. And so she is from Jersey, but is down in Florida with her mother-in-law. They are redoing Christmas. And so that's why she hopped on late. And she just texted me saying, please tell everybody, thank you. I'm sorry I had to get back to the family. And she said, loved Kelly, love you, thank you. And so I just wanted to let you know that.
Totally understandable.
Yeah, as well. But she's getting back to the family. So, okay. So thanks, ladies, so much. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for spending another Wednesday night with me. And Heather, it was back-to-back nights for her, so she's tired of seeing me. And Kelly, thank you. So I'll send out the information. Look for all of that. Good night, ladies. Thank you.